Overnight, in a prefecture bordering Tokyo, rain fell with an intensity Japan's weather agency had never officially recorded for that region in the 60 years it had been keeping records. Roads became impassable rivers. Vehicles were swept up in rapidly rising water with people still inside. And at one of the country's busiest international airports, roughly 7,000 travelers ended up stranded overnight, not because flights stopped operating, but because every road and rail connection linking the airport to the rest of the country failed simultaneously. This video is about what happened in Chiba Prefecture, Japan, over the past 24 hours. A record-breaking rainfall event that has killed at least 8 people, injured dozens more, and disrupted one of the busiest travel weeks on Japan's calendar for hundreds of thousands of residents and travelers. We'll walk through what actually happened, why this rainfall event was so far outside historical norms, and where recovery efforts currently stand, using reporting from Japanese officials, the Japan Meteorological Agency, and international wire services. If you have connections to the Tokyo or Chiba region, I hope everyone you know is safe. Let's go through what happened. Late on the afternoon of Thursday, August 13th, bands of intense rain formed over Chiba Prefecture, immediately east of Tokyo. Rather than moving through the region the way rain bands typically do, they stalled directly overhead, training repeatedly over the same towns and river systems for hour after hour. By the time the worst of the rainfall passed in the early hours of Friday morning, the Japan Meteorological Agency had recorded totals that broke station records dating back to 1966. Chiba City alone recorded 351 millimeters of rain, nearly 8 inches in roughly 12 hours, the highest total ever recorded at that station, well above the previous record of 259 millimeters. Some areas within the prefecture recorded even more, with 24-hour totals reaching 360 to 367 millimeters, surpassing the region's previous benchmark set in 2013. Hourly rates were similarly extreme, with parts of the city of Sakura recording 115 millimeters within a single hour, roughly 3 times the region's typical entire month rainfall total for August, compressed into just 60 minutes. The Japan Meteorological Agency's response reflected the severity of what was unfolding. For the first time in the prefecture's history, officials issued a Level 5 emergency heavy rain warning, the highest classification on Japan's alert scale, covering more than 20 municipalities. Chiba Governor Toshihito Kumagai described the event plainly. An extremely unusual situation, even by Japan's demanding historical weather standards. And despite having responded to numerous disasters throughout his career, he stated he had never experienced anything comparable to this one. It's worth understanding the specific meteorological mechanism that made this event so much more severe than a typical intense summer rain shower, since the storm's stalling behavior is central to why the totals reached record levels. Most intense rain bands move through a region relatively quickly, producing heavy rainfall for perhaps an hour or two before continuing onward, which naturally limits total accumulation even during a genuinely severe storm. What occurred over Chiba on Thursday afternoon was meaningfully different. The rain bands essentially locked in place, directly above the prefecture, repeatedly training over the same towns and rivers rather than sweeping through and dissipating. That stalling effect explains why the hourly rates, 115 millimeters within a single hour in parts of Sakura, over 100 millimeters in Chiba City, combined with a sustained multi-hour duration to produce genuinely unprecedented totals. A storm sustaining that hourly rate for even 20 minutes would already represent a serious flash flood risk. Sustaining rates approaching that intensity for close to 12 hours, which is essentially what occurred here, is the kind of event capable of overwhelming almost any drainage or river system, regardless of engineering quality, simply because no infrastructure anywhere is designed to move that volume of water that quickly for that long. Television footage and photographs from across Chiba captured the scale of what unfolded. Homes, vehicles, and sections of railway track disappeared beneath muddy floodwater. Roads across Chiba City, Ichikawa, Kashiwa, Sakura, and Yachiyo flooded rapidly, and dozens of homes experienced flooding both above and below floor level. River monitoring systems recorded level 4 flood danger conditions across 8 separate rivers in the prefecture, while the Murata River specifically reached level 5, indicating actual flood occurrence, confirmed directly through monitoring camera footage showing the river overtopping its banks in real time. By 6 a.m. Friday, prefectural records showed 7,359 people sheltering across 359 emergency sites spread throughout 39 municipalities. Approximately 230,000 residents had been advised to evacuate, with around 102,600 placed under formal mandatory evacuation orders. Power infrastructure sustained direct damage as well, with floodwater entering electrical substations. Tokyo Electric Power reported outages affecting between 20,000 and 26,000 households at the peak of the crisis, while gas service to thousands of additional households was temporarily suspended as a precautionary measure. The confirmed death toll from this disaster didn't arrive as a single figure. It climbed steadily throughout Friday as rescue crews worked through the aftermath, a pattern common to flash flood disasters generally, where the true scope only becomes clear once floodwaters recede enough for search teams to fully assess the damage. Reuters reported 4 confirmed deaths Friday morning. By midday, Japanese broadcaster NHK had that figure at 6. By early Friday afternoon, Chiba prefectural officials confirmed the toll had reached 8, distributed across 5 cities. 3 deaths in Chiba City, 2 in Sakura, and 1 each in Ichikawa, Kashiwa, and Yachio. Over 24 additional people were treated for injuries, and at least 1 person remained missing as search operations continued. Several of the deaths involved individuals trapped in flooded vehicles or found on flooded roadways, and there's a specific difficult reason behind that pattern. This flooding struck directly during Bon Week, one of the 2 or 3 busiest travel periods on Japan's entire calendar, the Buddhist holiday during which much of the country traditionally returns to hometowns to visit family. That meant Chiba's roads were carrying substantial holiday traffic at precisely the moment 115 millimeters of rain fell within a single hour in some areas, and a road receiving that volume of water that rapidly effectively stops functioning as a road. A vehicle is widely recognized among emergency responders as one of the most dangerous places a person can be during a flash flood, and it was also, tragically, exactly where a significant share of Chiba's population happened to be around 9 p.m. on a major travel night. Japan's ground self-defense force deployed personnel and vehicles into the prefecture to support search, rescue, and relief operations as the scale of the disaster became clear. While this unfolded across Chiba's neighborhoods, a related but distinct crisis developed at Narita International Airport, one of Japan's primary international gateways and one of the country's busiest airports during precisely this stretch of the calendar. Narita had forecast more than 1,900 total international passengers moving through the airport during the August 7th through 16th congestion period alone, part of the broader surge in Bon holiday travel. What happened there illustrates a specific, somewhat counterintuitive vulnerability. Flights themselves largely continued operating. Japan Airlines confirmed no cancellations, and an airport spokesperson told Reuters that flights were expected to continue operating normally into Friday. The failure wasn't in the airfield, it was in everything connecting the airfield to the surrounding region. Rail services to and from Narita were suspended entirely, and major highways linking the airport to central Tokyo became impassable. Passengers who had just landed on an otherwise normal flight, and passengers attempting to reach the airport for a scheduled departure, found themselves with effectively nowhere to go. As the airport's own business continuity planning had anticipated, airfield operations recovered faster than road and rail access, precisely the scenario that left roughly 7,000 travelers inside the terminals overnight. Airport staff responded by distributing sleeping bags, water, and snacks to stranded passengers as the terminal effectively became an emergency shelter. Japanese television broadcast images of travelers sleeping on terminal floors beneath emergency blankets, with families and international visitors alike settling in for an unplanned night. One stranded traveler told Reuters he had waited 4 hours to secure a taxi, only to discover upon arrival that his booked hotel couldn't accommodate him, forcing him to return to the airport. Long queues formed throughout the night as travelers sought supplies and updates on when transportation would resume. This disaster fits into a broader, difficult pattern for Japan specifically. Despite the country's widely recognized infrastructure and disaster preparedness, its geography leaves it genuinely susceptible to precisely this kind of event. Japan's mountainous terrain means rivers tend to be short and steep, causing rainwater to concentrate and rise considerably faster than in flatter, larger river systems found elsewhere. Combined with a dense population concentrated across low-lying coastal plains, exactly the kind of terrain that characterizes much of Chiba Prefecture, a single stalled rain band is capable of producing flooding this severe, this quickly, in areas that wouldn't ordinarily be considered high flood risk. This year, specifically, has already tested that vulnerability on multiple occasions, with a series of intense rainfall episodes straining drainage, transportation, and emergency response systems nationwide well before this event in Chiba. The timing during Bon Week specifically amplified the human toll considerably beyond what the same storm might have caused on an ordinary week, since it coincided directly with the single period of the year when the largest number of people are simultaneously traveling across the country's roads, rail lines, and airports. By Friday morning, signs of recovery had begun to emerge, even as the broader situation remained far from resolved. Some rail service between Narita and central Tokyo resumed, though several lines remained suspended. Major highways across Chiba stayed closed in places, forcing traffic onto already congested alternative routes. As the afternoon progressed, several municipalities began lifting their evacuation measures, Inzai at 5:10 p.m., Ichihara at 4:48 p.m., while Mashirasato at 3:35 p.m., signaling that the immediate rainfall threat was genuinely subsiding. Chiba City itself, however, maintained a level 4 evacuation order, and officials were explicit that landslide and flood risk remained elevated across the region simply because the ground was now fully saturated, meaning even modest additional rainfall could trigger new hazardous conditions on slopes and along riverbanks already pushed to their limit. For residents across Chiba, and for the tens of thousands of travelers still navigating disrupted plans during one of Japan's most significant travel weeks, the guidance from officials remains straightforward. Avoid flooded roads, rivers, and unstable slopes until conditions are confirmed stable, and continue following updates directly from Japanese authorities and the Japan Meteorological Agency, rather than assuming danger has fully passed simply because the rain itself has stopped. Saturated ground doesn't become safe the moment skies clear, which is precisely the message officials have continued to emphasize throughout this recovery. One figure worth holding on to from everything covered here: the 351 millimeters that fell on Chiba City in roughly 12 hours broke a record that had stood since 1966. 60 years of rainfall data surpassed within a single overnight event. That's the actual scale of what unprecedented represents in this case. Not a descriptive choice for a headline, but a statement of fact from a weather agency that had never recorded anything approaching this total in 6 decades of measurement. We'll continue following recovery efforts in Chiba as more information becomes available. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.